Hello and happy Valentine's Day, and welcome to Team Compass, not Submarine Compass, right? Today we're about to talk to you about 4 films in our film unit. My name is Liam, this is Johan, this is Holly, and that's Ella. Take it away, Johan, with Metropolis.
So Metropolis was a German expressionist film that was set in 1927. It was a silent film, one of the first silent it was the first silent film that I watched. And it was absolutely amazing in my opinion. Now, being a silent film, what do you guys think in terms of how much relevance Metropolis still holds in today's day and age, almost a century after its release?
Well, being set in a possible future, I feel like maybe we're not technologically quite there yet, but all the themes in politics are still relevant. We still have, or more so maybe in other countries like less developed, we still have a class system. There's the higher ups and then there's the working class that struggle. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, definitely.
It was definitely more extreme. It was very like the hierarchy and the whole political kind of spectrum of it. I think it was a lot more like intense or extreme than kind of what we're used to today, but it was still very present in there.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was quite iconic based on its time and how far forward they had actually moved with the kind of almost cinematography of how they had developed the skyscrapers, and in the upper class worlds you had all of the nice lighting to show their wealth and their extravagance, and you went down to the working class and they had all these kind of robotic movements that they had everyone to do, so it was almost like they were dehumanised, and a lot of stuff that was taken from that, and it was all dark and dreary, and I think that's still kind of quite relevant today, how they were able to do that all that way back time in that movie, and now we're still moving forward and they're still using those kind of techniques today, and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's how I find it.
Awesome. And what about the symbolism of the head, heart, and hands? What do you guys think about that?
I loved it. I heard someone before say it was very Disney. I agree, Disney. I thought it was great. There's a reason I liked it. It kind of incorporated a love story into this.
Yeah.
Post-war oppression.
And armistice,
Yeah.
It felt very innocent, everyone gets everyone will forgive each other, and it's a happy ending for everyone.
And at the end of the day, it's all happiness.
It felt like a little bit like sunshine and rainbows at the end of this very.
Yeah, and I feel like the character that was played by that Frederick played, his look was quite childish as well, and his whole
very
body language was very childish. So him being the mediator between the head and the hands, that was kind of everything's good at the end.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that the heart, Frida, he comes from that whole the upper class of the society, but he kind of had that moral instinct that this isn't right. There are people living in slums beneath me, and and my dad doesn't really care. But I think that's nice that he kind of became the mediator, even though he's from the kind of
The upper class.
Yeah.
Do you think it's possibly his fondness for Maria that drove him to
Yes.
drove him to
The way that she's
go-
introduced,
to go against his father and his whole empire basically that had been built.
I mean, the opening scene is literally him hanging out in the garden with all these all these women, and then he just
she turns up.
and he's just oh my goodness, who is this? Love at first sight. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's that obviously kind of leads him to his discovery of kind of the underworld.
I have to disagree. I do understand that that's probably got a lot to do with it, but I think that he was actually just a good person. And although that's what I like to think, and although she led him to find that, he did go down there and then see it. He was horrified by how they were being treated. He was a lot of the films to do with Dad, why are you doing this?
And
Not kind of just
we can
following
see,
the girl.
We can see that representation in the film when he takes over for that guy who was doing the machine.
Yeah.
And he's just like,
Good
go to
person.
my house,
Apartment,
go to my apartment, and gave
Mm.
him an apartment number and said, wait there for me, and we'll get to the bottom of this. So yeah.
Cool, so that was it for Metropolis. Now we have next Liam, who's going to be taking over 2001 Space Odyssey.
Thank you, Johan. So essentially, 2001: A Space Odyssey is a science fiction regarding a futuristic society, well, at the time of 1968, and their space travel from Earth to Jupiter, and their mission to uncover the secrets of this monolith, which is a big black structure that is sent here by aliens to monitor our progress and influence us. So, 2001: A Space Odyssey was released in 1968 and is considered highly influential. Do you think the film has aged well, and were there other films that you think could be compared to this?
I think it has aged well. Like I don't personally watch a lot of movies, but when I just saw that when we watched it the other day in Film Club, I just thought the cinematography was incredible, all the visual effects, really nice aesthetic, and yeah, it could have been released really recently and you'd believe that it was.
Yeah.
So
I think it was like a really, like for the time, it was a really massive turning point in films. Like there hadn't really been a lot of well-known space films done kind of like the way that we would expect them to be done today. And like obviously I think, you know, A Space Odyssey really inspired a whole bunch of movies that we know, like Star Wars, like Gravity, all those kind of films that they kind of like, they all take that from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I felt that before 1968's 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Kubrick, forgot to mention the director, that doing a film of that level was just out of the question, because before that, like a lot of the movies regarding space were B movies. They were kind of crummy, you know, like 1950s sort of schlock.
Yeah.
And now it's just visually stunning. It could have been made yesterday, I think. You know, it was just on a visual level, on a technical level. You know, it felt like I was in space. So.
yeah, I agree with that.
And didn't they say that they thought like Stanley Kubrick would have been the one to make the landing on
The moon.
on the moon
yeah,
thing? Yeah, like
the conspiracy theory.
yeah, the whole conspiracy of the fact that we didn't actually land and that Stanley Kubrick just made a film of it because he's known for his, you know.
I loved the whole setup of the whole AI going rogue and killing everyone.
Yeah.
The people who were under hibernation and stuff and like completely killing them, and I really liked that. But just the whole last 15 minutes of the imagery kind of lost my interest over there a little bit, and I didn't understand where he ended up and what that had to do with their whole travel through space.
With anything.
With anything, like, you know.
That brings me to my next point. You know, what do you imagine the purpose of the monolith to be? Yeah, and what crossed your mind when you first saw it? Not what you researched afterwards and discovered that the monolith really was, but what did you think of it when you were watching the film?
I didn't think a lot. When I first saw it, I was kind of watching it. I'm not used to this genre. I didn't really understand what it was. After a bit of research, I did kind of click to it, but yeah, first it was very confusing.
Especially with the whole opening scene, like you're literally just like kind of in this desert. There's a whole bunch of like apes running around, and it's very primitive,
You're
very
expecting
like
a space movie.
yeah, yeah, and then you see this giant monolith, and you're kind of like okay, but I think like both like the audience and the apes are still cool. Are like cool. So what is that, and what is it doing there?
Yeah.
Because it represents us, you know, the apes. It sparks evolution, you know, and essentially we're left in the dark about it. Nothing is explained to us, you know.
No.
We're put in the perspective of those in the film that see it. You know, they don't know what's going on as well, as much as what we don't know what's going on.
Exactly. Like the monolith was quite confusing and very peculiar. Like I remember speaking to you about it when
We
we were
Googled
with
it.
Yeah, and we like sat there and we were like, what does this thing have to do with anything in the movie?
Yeah.
You know, and it was, we would not even dream of what we googled, of what
We
it,
Googled
what symbolism it held in the movie. And
Yeah.
it was.
I thought that it might work to an advantage because everything is left to the imagination, you know.
Yeah.
And when you're watching it and you hear the music behind it, it really feels like something unholy. You know, you shouldn't touch it. you don't want the characters to interact with it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The unknown,
Yeah. It was quite well done, I think. That
Yeah.
it was confusing.
Yeah.
It was very confusing.
And next is Ella with The Matrix.
Cool. So The Matrix is a 1999 science fiction film directed by the Wachowski siblings that follows the chosen one Neo in a world where humans aren't born, they're created, and uses batteries for a race known as the Machines. Keanu Reeves as Neo is born into the Matrix and he has the ability to bend it like at his own will. The film follows him on his journey of self-discovery and his mission to save Zion and the human race. Cool, so first question we'll talk about is the Wachowskis had all the lead actors read Simulacra and Simulation by Jean Baudrillard before they started filming. Why do we think they did this?
Well, definitely would have been part of character development. The Matrix is obviously a very intelligently led film and created, and they wanted each of their characters to be able to, understand the concept of reality not really being reality. Isn't it it's a psychological theory
Yes.
on that, isn't it?
Yes.
And we see it later in the film when the book is actually referenced and used as a part. So kind of get one of those like intelligent little things that you pick up if you know your background research.
Yeah, exactly. Because it kind of it's all about how like Plato's whole cave metaphor that we're just literally just watching shadows on the wall of a cave. Like we're kind of being like consumed by the media and like culture and all that kind of stuff, and it's actually like kind of like altering our perception of reality, and that's kind of what the Matrix is about.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to note that Baudrillard actually didn't really like the Matrix. Like he thought it was quite crude, and that it didn't really represent like his hypothesis or what he was kind of getting at. I think for him, I feel like, well, he said that he thinks it like missed the mark a little bit. Anyone know why, or kind of have any ideas as to why that might have been?
Well, I haven't read the Simulacra, but I think that maybe he's being a little bit precious about it because it's his work, and there are some things you can't go that in depth about because it is a Hollywood film. It's supposed to be fun, it's entertainment, and maybe Baudrillard has lost the point of that.
Yeah.
Going from a psychological theory to a Hollywood sci-fi with cops and robbers and guns and all that sort of thing. Yeah, definitely would have.
It's like a philosophy that makes you question your very existence, and then
It's a real theory.
Yeah, it is. And then if I can imagine from his point of view, when you have like somebody take it and make it into an action film where it's just shooting and somebody dodging bullets and stuff like that.
Very
It can it can be quite like whitewashing my my concept and my thought and my philosophy.
I agree. Yeah.
Cool. So what archetypal characters did we see in The Matrix? Are there any like similar archetypes in any other films that you guys noticed?
Well, we had Morpheus, who's the main African American character, and he plays quite a vital role in the film in terms of he doesn't necessarily save the day, but he leads Neo to where he needs to be, and without Morpheus, and he is obviously a very, very like important person in the whole revolution against the machines, but I think Morpheus needs Neo as much as Neo needs Morpheus, so.
I mean, like Neo's obviously our hero of the story. That's one of the biggest probably archetypes in there, and that he's the white savior. He's the one who's kind of come in, born of the Matrix. Like Morpheus is, he's like literally been searching his whole life just to find Neo.
The one.
Yeah, exactly.
We also had when you talk about that magical Negro trope or whatever, you see lots of that aspects of it in Morpheus, with how he kind of has the information and can help Neo with those points.
He's kind of seen as like
wise.
Yeah.
And then as well with the Oracle, when you see her kind of mystical edge, and she's got that that spirituality that often the magical Negro does have, and to give wisdom to Neo that he wasn't aware of at that point.
Totally. So going on the magical Negro trope, like what is it? Like what does it mean for the Matrix? Like what's its role?
I think it's just in general in movies, it's very a stereotypical kind of magical Negro who can add what the aspects I just discussed with the Oracle and Morpheus is with that spirituality and that wisdom and being able to impart that. And there's just something about the magical black meteor that makes you want to know and trust what they're saying.
So now we're going to be moving on to talk about The Handmaid's Tale. Holly, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, so we're just looking at the pilot episode of Handmaid's Tale. Handmaid's Tale is an American dystopian drama web television series, which is created by Bruce Miller and directed by Reed Morano. It's based on a 1985 novel of the same name by Margaret Atwood. The plot follows a dystopian future following a second American Civil War, where fertile women called handmaids are forced into sexual acts and slavery to produce children for other people of higher status. So, just looking at that in general, that pilot episode, how did you find it? Did you enjoy it? Did you not enjoy it? What did we think of the acting? There's a lot of actors that we're familiar with already off recent things. How do we find it?
Well, based on it being a television format, I thought that the use of a cliffhanger and all the usual television sort of aspects were quite good, and it made me want to watch the next one because I really wanted to figure out what happened at the conclusion. You know, like there was a cliffhanger where someone is discovered to be a spy, and I was thinking, oh damn, I really want to know what happens. So that was engaging to me, but I wouldn't say I had fun watching it. It's pretty hard to watch.
Yeah, it was definitely. It definitely kind of just came at you because, like, obviously that's kind of something that like we don't deal with at the moment. Like, you know, like we have no issue, but like, what if there was an issue with women's fertility? Like, what, like, because I think even just from the pilot, like, I felt like even the woman who was infertile, who had to literally watch her husband like sleep with someone else, and the woman that was fertile, like both of them like hated the position that they were in because of their fertility. And I think that was really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's a very disturbing, kind of hard and heavy idea to wrap yourself around. I did enjoy watching it. I think I am going to continue watching the series. But it was good to see kind of Elizabeth Moss in there, and is it Samira Wiley who plays Moira off Orange is the New Black? And they do really well at harnessing in those characters, and it's very emotive and using those kind of facial expressions, and their acting I was really impressed by it and how they could kind of make that realistic.
It was very hard hitting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, like especially like for me, I've been brought up with two sisters, so for me to see something like that, like I instantly put my sisters in that situation, and it's quite upsetting. Even though it's quite a good first pilot, it's quite a good pilot series, and it leaves you like wanting to know more, but it's quite hard to watch.
Especially because it's in such like a accessible format, like it's a Hulu television show. Like it's not like a documentary or like a movie. It's literally just something that you can like go onto your computer or your TV and go, let's sit down and have dinner and watch this. Like it's, you know?
It's a lot, yeah. Okay, so that's the leading of the whole idea of women's bodies being used as political instruments, for the government. What do we think about that, and do we think that that's something that ever in the near future could be a possibility of happening in our society?
No, impossible.
Definitely not?
Definitely not.
Okay.
Really? I would argue that like it's kind of already happening. We see women dressing up in these costumes, in the handmaids' costumes, and protesting about abortion rights, which is literally the same thing. It's just about like who gets to decide, like those kind of like life-changing decisions. Is it like the government, or is it the woman? It's her body. Is it her, or? And I guess that's kind of what we kind of see and come across in this show as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, that's right. Okay, so what do we think about the cinematography and kind of the visual choices that the director Reed Morano and the cinematographer Colin Watkinson used to portray the story?
Going off what you said earlier, it's like a very, to me, I really thought it was like a really 1950s palette. Like, especially with just like kind of how the whole household dynamics work. Like there was a cook, which like we don't really see in like normal upper class houses, or like, and there was like a driver, and that kind of thing. And like when when it was the big ceremony day, they would all come together and they'd pray. It was very like pray for her fertility, and like that felt very like 1950s. How
Backwards.
yes, it was. It felt very like kind of old fashioned in that kind of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of close-ups as well that were used, and I feel like that had a lot of prominence because it drew you into what the person's actual emotions are, you know, instead of just having it like a normal shot where there's a lot of different things that are distracting you. It's just that extreme close-up.
You're focused.
Like you're focused. All you can see is just their face,
Yeah.
and you know it's quite like
It's very powerful.
and very powerful. Like it puts that punchline in there.
Makes you feel uncomfortable. Like there's a scene.
Yeah.
There's a scene especially where the main character is Offred. She's forced to like every month to be part of this of sleeping with the commander who's in charge of the whole household. And I remember you don't really see the sex itself.
Yeah.
I don't think you really see it, but you see her reaction and there's a close up on her face and you can't look away or blink. Like you're forced to watch, and I think that is more intimidating than watching.
A
sex
rape scene.
Yeah.
I think because you're forced to look at her reacting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like it's definitely like more disturbing purposefully. Just it kind of makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just
Very
watching it.
uncomfortable.
Because you can't help or anything.
Yeah.
They use a lot of shallow focus throughout the film to kind of shallow focus is where they kind of you can see one aspect but the rest is blurry. And I read a really interesting interview that Morano was discussing why she chose to use a lot of shallow focus, and she was saying that because she wanted kind of the flashbacks of the women that are in this time to kind of feel like a distant dream, like a memory, so you've kind of got that spaced out
Right.
theme and focus as well, and you see it used a lot throughout the movie. Throughout the party episode.
It also makes it feel like further away. Like
Yeah.
it makes it feel like what we're watching now is the reality in the world.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
The colours change and everything when it's gone to a better time. When you go into the past and you see them at a party or something, it's quite happy, you know. And the colours reflect that in,
Like
in
it's
the
warm.
techniques. Yeah, it's warm.
It's a warm. It's
Yeah.
like saturation.
Yeah.
You're watching something different, you know. It feels like a completely like if there was an ad break and you came back to that, you'd think it was a different show.
Yeah.
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 Well, the director actually used to be in cinematography before she started directing, and I feel like that's why they won 2 Emmys in the 2017 awards for the cinematography in it, and I feel like a lot of it was to do with her experience in cinematography as well as having a cinematographer on set as well. So yeah, it's very powerful.